everyone. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Perfect. All right, so today we are editing 11/3 and 11/4, so November 3rd and November 4th of the podcast for COVID-19 Literature Surveillance Team. So here we go.
The report for November 3rd, 2020.
Climate. Is the fear of contracting COVID causing people to defer seeking care for acute conditions and leading to higher rates of at-home death during this pandemic? Researchers explored the incidence of 5 medical emergencies: acute MI, medical emergencies, acute MI, ischemic stroke, non-traumatic subarachnoid hemorrhage, ectopic pregnancy, and appendicitis in 2 U.S. medical centers, namely at Stanford University Medical Center and New York Presbyterian. Authors found a decreased incidence of acute myocardial infarction, non-traumatic subarachnoid hemorrhage, and ischemic stroke cases in both centers, and a decrease in appendicitis cases in New York, with no changes in ectopic pregnancy cases at either center. To explain the decrease incidence during the pandemic, they're concerned that patients may be deferring seeking care for these conditions from fear of contracting COVID-19 and may be leading to higher rates of death at home. Death at home.
Transmission and prevention. Operation Warp Speed's strategy and approach are outlined by an official physician scientist. It is a partnership of the Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Defense, and the private sector. Their goal is to advance development, manufacturing, and distribution of vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics to establish control over the COVID-19 pandemic. The initiative set objectives of delivering 300 million doses of the SARS-CoV-2 vaccine by mid-2021, with strict criteria by which companies have to comply in order to be accepted. Currently, there are 8 vaccines in their portfolio, which include Moderna, Pfizer, both mRNA, AstraZeneca, and Janssen, both replication defective live vector, and and Novavax and Sanofi GSK, both recombinant subunit adjuvant proteins.
Management. Management. Among 89 COVID-19 ICU patients at New York Beth Israel Medical Center, one study finds that 8.9% developed nosocomial candidemia over an average ICU stay of 25 days. Compared to the control, they found that COVID-19 ICU patients with higher BMI, prolonged mechanical ventilation, and superimposed bacterial infections were associated with concomitant candidemia, but in-hospital mortality was not significantly changed. Thus, the author suggests that providers be aware of systemic fungal infections as a potential complication in COVID-19 ICU patients.
R&D. R&D, diagnosis and treatments. The efficacy and safety of SARS-CoV-2 neutralizing antibody LY-CoV555 and anti-spike neutralizing monoclonal antibody were analyzed in a randomized, double-blind controlled trial. The investigators examined the antibody's effect on viral load, symptom scores, and clinical outcome of 452 patients across 41 centers in the United States receiving one of three doses: 700 milligrams, 2800 milligrams, or 7,000 milligrams, or a placebo. Although the authors acknowledged the need for further studies, the trial so far indicates possible reduction in symptom severity and reduction in viral load with higher doses of the LY-CoV555, suggesting that it could become a useful treatment for patients with a recent diagnosis of COVID-19.
Mental health and resilience needs. The risk and protective factors for prospective changes in adolescent mental health during the pandemic was examined in a survey of 248 adolescents in the urban areas of New South Wales, Australia. Findings show that the adolescents have increased anxiety and depressive symptoms and decreased life satisfaction due to the governmental restrictions posed to control viral spread. The author suggests a call to action to increase close monitoring of these adolescents and find ways of supporting and maintaining social engagements for them.
All right.
That's all for today. Thanks for listening.
For them.
That's all for
engagements for them.
That's all
engagements for them.
That's all for today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening.
Continue to
listening.
Continue to Welcome back to the Daily Report brought
Okay, so I checked the bit depth there. I don't know if the screen showed it, but I've been having a little, I wouldn't say difficulty. See, that one was perfect because the bit depth from the audio wave is 16 and the bit depth in the multi-track section is also 16. However, sometimes they've been converted and I do not know entirely why. Obviously, I can look this up. And the Adobe Audition Reddit sub is actually pretty useful sometimes. But yeah, so maybe there'll be an example of that this time. That's not it. That's not the thing I want. I want choice 1, MP3. Alright, we're going to bring it all the way down to negative, I'm going to do 28 decibels. There we go. Negative 28.6 decibels. Let's see. Okay, we can hear it.
The report.
The report.
The report for November 3rd, 2020.
climate. Is the fear of contracting COVID causing people to defer seeking care for acute conditions and leading to higher rates of
Alright, so keynote. Another keynote. That's what they're called. I think that's what we learned, right?
R&D, diagnosis, and treatments. The efficacy and safety of
Thus, the author suggests that providers be aware of systemic fungal infections as a potential complication in COVID.
Alright, so we're going to do choice 1 again. That's how we're going to do it. And then I'll just kind of, there we go. Again, we have to bring that down to 28.6, negative 28.6 decibels. Sounds good to me.
COV 555, an anti-spike neutralizing monoclonal antibody, were analyzed in a randomized, double-blind That's all for today. Thanks for listening.
Okay, so we're going to go back. Bunch keynotes. I try to make it as kind of curved as we can. We're gonna do that over here.
The report for November 3rd, 2020.
Climate.
Okay, so then we're gonna go to File, Export, multi-track mixdown, entire session. Alright, this is when we're gonna change it to 11_3 final. I don't think you can see this, but basically it's the location, the format, which is a wave, of course. New sample type is the same. We're doing 44/100 hertz on a stereo, 32-bit depth, which is interesting because we just talked about how we created a multi-track mixdown that was 16-bit. But now we're going to keep it to 32-bit. And then, okay, it's exporting. It's going to take a hot second. That's okay. Oh, God. What message did I just get? Oh my God. I can't even. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. Now we can work on the next one. No one's watching this, which is okay. But if someone does and I don't see it, go ahead, feel free to leave me a chat. I will definitely answer all of your questions because, again, you'd be the only one on. And I have all the time in the world today. Okay. Let's get into it.
The report for November 4th, 2020.
Understanding the pathology. Should we be testing for more than SARS-CoV-2 antibodies? Microbiologists, pathologists, and public health experts associated with Mount Sinai Hospital analyzed 3,277.
Wow, that's super loud. Sorry, guys.
Hospital analyzed 3,277 blood specimens from recovered COVID-19 patients. They found that neutralizing antibody level is the highest 31 through 35 days post-symptom onset, even though general SARS-CoV-2 antibody levels have been high, well above the 160 titer range cutoff long before this, suggesting the importance of also testing for neutralizing antibodies.
Damn, I really wish I knew what that meant. Okay. Jingle bell, jingle bell. Is anyone else really excited for Christmas? I have no idea why it's November 8th and I'm like super excited for Christmas. Where were we? Okay,
Transmit
I knew it. All right, here we go.
Transmission and prevention. How do close contact and aerosol transmission risks compare? Swiss environmental engineers applied a quantitative microbial risk assessment (QMRA) to evaluate SARS-CoV-2 infection risk via aerosol transmission and close indoor contact using dose-response mice models and infection risk data from meta-analysis, and found lower infection transmission risk via aerosol exposure within 1 hour compared to close contact in a typically ventilated room with one infected person. Close contact may pose higher infection risk than aerosol transmission, but suggest real-life circumstances such as prolonged exposure and higher density could heighten risk of aerosol transmission not accounted for in this analysis. Found lower transmission accounted for in this analysis. Found lower transmission.
I don't know what that was. We're just going to delete it.
Infectious disease physicians from the U.S.
Yeah, I don't.
Could heighten risk of aerosol transmission not accounted for in this analysis.
That sounds good to me. Get a bucket and a mop. Alright, that's stuck in my head. I don't know.
Infectious disease physicians from the US and UK reviewed data on transmission and detection of SARS-CoV-2 infection and found that children under 10 years old are less susceptible to contract SARS-CoV-2. Transmission of the virus is more robust in high schools compared to primary schools, and schools with transmission prevention measures in place have seen less viral spread compared to schools without prevention measures, supporting the implementation of transmission prevention measures in schools, especially high schools, to slow viral spread in the community.
R&D. R&D, diagnosis and treatments. Polyester or foam nasal swabs, which is better? A comparative
I hadn't even thought about that. I'm going to say polyester, but we're going to find out.
A comparative analysis investigated sensitivity of polyester and foam nasal swabs stored in viral transport media, saline, or dry tubes from 126 convalescent COVID-19 patients. They found that polyester and foam swabs had sensitivities of 87.3% versus 94.5% in viral transport media.